These gold subs are some of the best watches on the market, and they are, relatively speaking, cheap. No one talks about them. They've been totally forgotten since ceramic, and that is insane. I'm glad to see it here. I love watch spotting. I love taking a look at what's on other people's wrists in the real world. So that's what we're doing today. Today's episode is sponsored by Caldera Labs. More on them later. And today's episode is a photo, or my reaction to a photo recap that Hodinkee posted of the NAWCC convention. That's the National Association of Watch and Clock Collectors. And they posted a full photo recap. And I love this stuff. I've always loved this stuff. I love making these videos because these photo recaps are a real look at what watches look like in the wild, not studio photography, not that kind of bullshit that brands post that is totally unrelatable. This is what the watches look like, and there's so much more layered. It's so much more interesting, and I just love seeing people get together and on their own volition talk about watches, hang out. That is the bedrock of this community, so I think that videos like this are fun to make. A lot of watches in this recap. We're going to start off with Breitling. We're going to go into a really undervalued precious metal Rolex that just no one ever looks at, by the way. We're going to talk about complicated IWC, which is hideous, but it's like, again, really undervalued. And I think that you get massive street cred if you pay secondary pricing. I'm going to get into a whole bunch of other stuff. So today's episode is a great one, and let's get into it. Let's start off with these Breitlings, 2 chronographs, really close-up photography so we can really see the wear and condition. Again, 2 Breitling chronographs, one a chronograph with a bezel here, rotating bezel, whereas the other on the left, being a navitimer, has a lot of instrumentation, tachometer, etc. I think that these 2 watches are just a great example of vintage Breitling. They're not perfect. They're not safe queens. They've been worn. I doubt they've been, necessarily used in their intended purpose, which is for flight per se. But these watches were born as tool watches. They were worn as tool watches, honestly, and they're in worn condition, but original, honest condition. I think that that's really great. I was actually just showing a buddy who has a proclivity toward really, really expensive watches that you lose a bunch of money on. Shout out to you, Joe. And he was, he drives a Turbo S, and he said, "Oh my God, I love these Porsche design watches. Are they cool?" And I started sending him vintage examples, and he was like, "I don't know, these kind of seem kind of worn." And I was like, "Yeah, that's the point. The point when you buy a vintage tool watch is it's supposed to be worn. A vintage Patek Philippe Calatrava, maybe a wedding watch if you want to call it that, right? But a vintage tool watch, like a Porsche design or like a Breitling or like so many other pieces, these watches, a Submariner, it's great to see them in perfect condition, but they were meant to be worn and used. And I think these are 2 really great examples. I will pay compliment to Breitling because they still, or all these years later, they do make some really great pieces that are honest to their heritage. Some from the Navitimer collection, which they make in 41, 43, and 46. I am definitely partial to the 41. I would even love to see it at 39 or 40. But this is a great example of a beautiful Breitling Navitimer. And then in their Super Ocean line, I am a very public spokesperson. I really think this is a great line. So Breitling does a great job today, but there is nothing like just vintage raw Breitling charm. Next piece is a Universal Genève Tri-Compax. I think that these are some of the most gorgeous, intricate tool watches of the 20th century. I think these are largely cooler than Daytonas. They are more complicated. They do the instrumentation really well. They're kind of wonky. The handset is really weird and original. I love the addition of the moon phase. I don't know of another watch this complicated and yet still well designed and proportioned. These watches are fabulous. They're really expensive now. They used to be well below $10,000, and now they are multiples of that, no doubt. But you can still get other examples, not quite as rare in this colorway, or more modern, even in precious metal, in that $5,000 range. This stuff is really rare and expensive, but very cool. And I remember when these watches shot up, this actually was a big Hodinkee push. Ben Clymer of Hodinkee got really into Universal Genève, and those watches really skyrocketed. But great, cool, beautiful watch. I'm sure that the photographer was tickled to see it in real life. Today's episode is sponsored by our friends over at Caldera Lab, because we, gentlemen, want to continue looking good as we age, and soap and water doesn't really cut it. I love Caldera Lab because they produce a quick, simple, and effective serum. I notice a difference fast. Plus, Caldera Labs has a no BS cleaner that balances your skin without any harsh treatment. It's perfect for starting and ending your day feeling fresh. I've been using the 3-step regimen now for about 2 months, and it's just been great. You start in the morning by cleaning your face with the quote-unquote clean slate, and then after your face and hands are dry, you just apply a small amount of the base layer to your face and neck, and you finish really quickly at the end with the Good, which is their hero product. It's a powerhouse serum with over 3.4 million antioxidant units per drop to reduce signs of aging and leave your skin looking healthier, smoother, and more even-toned. It's not complicated. I don't like complicated. Complicated scares me. My life's complicated enough, and Caldera Labs has been just a perfect skincare partner. I recommend that you guys go over to calderalab.com/Theo Harris for 20% off your first order. Thank you to Caldera Lab. Go enjoy. Next watch here represents a ton of value. And this is weird, and I definitely want your opinion on this, because this is an IWC Da Vinci, which I think is one of the most polarizing designs in all of like luxury history or mainstream luxury history. I think it's in many ways terrible. I think that its critics absolutely have a right. I mean, you always have a right to criticize anything, but I think that its critics are largely even correct when they criticize these watches, because they're so decadent. They're kind of off-putting. They have a pocket watch feel, and they're kind of ornate. It's weird. There's no balance here like we see in other dress watches, like Patek Philippe's Calatrava, like a lot of things from Lange. There's not a lot of balance. It's just ornate. But that being said, it's not a bad design. It's a decisive design. It's not bad. And it's a precious metal perpetual calendar from a luxury, well-known brand. And these watches are like $15,000. You're not really going to do much better than that on paper, really. A lot of people clamor at, equal watches at multiples of the price. It's just true, right? And I think that these are really great. I also think that if you want something that's a little bit more well kind of balanced and not as decisively ornate, you can also look at a lot of other IWCs, complicated IWCs in precious metal, like their Portuguese, again, around $15,000. These retail over 40. I have a buddy that paid over 40, but you can get them between 15 and 22,000, and they're awesome. They're big, but they're awesome. I think this watch is just a great example of kind of undervalued, kind of quirky. Not sure if it'll ever skyrocket, but I also wouldn't be surprised, because all it really takes is a couple of, vintage watch collectors with a ton of money and a bankroll to say, what do you guys think? Maybe we should buy all of them and make them cool? What do you think? And then it happens. And then everyone's like, shit, why didn't we think about buying a perpetual calendar IWC in yellow gold for $15,000? Stupid. Classic, everybody, right? So I think that this is, I think it's a really interesting watch, and I would have loved to have seen it in person. I've seen them in person, but I think it's really, really cool. Next watch we're talking about for a second is the Hamilton Ventura. You don't see these very often. It's a very early electric watch. Elvis Presley actually wore this watch with this model of watch. I love the design. I think it's super weird. Again, very, very decisive, so it's polarizing. It's not as thin and as delicate as some other comparable designs from other big brands like Patek Philippe, so it doesn't have the same level of balance. It's kind of big and it's kind of thick for what it is. I don't prefer that. I prefer the Pateks, to be honest. But I do think that it's certainly unusual, and if you put a different brand on the dial, you put Cartier on the dial, everyone would love it, and they'd be at auction for $150,000. And that's just true. So I definitely do recommend that you poke around for Venturas on different websites. Keep your eye out, learn about the history of the electric movement, learn about, their relationship with Elvis. There's something to love there. I'm not going to add a Ventura to my collection. I'm just not. But I do really like them, and I do think that they're worth considering, and I do think they're worth talking about. Next watch here is fabulous. This is mainstream and underappreciated. It is precious and, not under the radar, geez, but people don't buy these watches. This is a beautiful Rolex Submariner in yellow gold, no bracelet, and just a vibrant blue bezel. You just don't see the love for these watches. They are, you can go on Chrono24 and there are always a bunch. Of course, once you factor in patination and condition, you can get up there in price, but you can get into the world of yellow gold Submariners from the 90s cheap, $15,000, and you're in the conversation. $15,000 is a ton of money. Obviously, no dispute about that. But for what it is, It's a lot of watch, and people don't have them. People aren't buying them. They're not collecting them at the same, rate as stainless steel Rolex sports models. I think that's ridiculous. I think that these are really just overlooked watches, and a particularly good example here. There's not even a close-up photo, and I spotted it, just spotted it, and I was like, damn, that watch deserved a close-up. If someone in the 80s were to have purchased a beautiful condo or a beautiful home on the beach in the Bahamas, and you're rich but unassuming, you're like a surfer and you used to be in finance, but like that life's behind you, but you still have the gold watch and now you wear it all the time, that's what that is. I would wear this watch on a freaking NATO strap or a single pass and absolutely adore it. This is a fabulous watch. I literally can't recommend this more. A brand new Rolex Submariner right now is like $11,000 and these begin at $15,000. I recommend all the time that people look at this stuff, even at GMTs. No-brainer watches, dollar for dollar. No-brainer. Next piece here is a Rolex John Mayer. My buddy actually got one of these just the other day. I don't need to talk about the John Mayer for a while. So much has been said about it already. Obviously, the John Mayer value is around $75,000 right now. They used to be $125,000. So they've taken a bit of depreciation, of course, since COVID. But I don't think the bottom is much lower than where it is. I could see it fluttering in the 60s in good condition, but that's about it. I think these are great watches. They're obviously hype watches, but I think they really do live up. I really do, and I way prefer them to the new version, which they're calling the Masters or whatever it may be. I just love the red accents in the John Mayer. At 125, it's insane. At 40, it was great. But at 65, 75, honestly, I get it. I still do think my date is the poor man's John Mayer, if you will, or the smart man's John Mayer. Of course, I don't mean that completely, but I do think the same color combo being delivered at a very small fraction of the price. Not why I bought it, but certainly not why I bought it. And I think that this is I think John Mayer is great, but I do take my date all day. Last but not least, a good, clean, honest, classic Rolex 1603. You just don't get much better than the 1603, 1601, 1600. That last number, all it does is signify the bezel configuration, whether it's 1603 and its engine turn, 1601 white gold, 1600 smooth steel. I just love these watches. When Sammy right here asked me many years ago, what's the one watch to get? I told him a Datejust. It's the watch that I got first, and it's a watch that I still wear constantly and still admire constantly. I'm wearing one right now. This is a beautiful reference 1603 that is available in the Theo & Harris watch shop with its original box and papers, by the way. Come on, all the goodies. Go take a look at the Theo & Harris watch shop. That is not why I chose to talk about this watch in the photo recap. It absolutely is. This is a shameless plug. Oh, look at these papers. Fabulous. I mean, it's just fabulous. But this is just one of the watches available in the shop right now. Whether you buy your Datejust from us with its box and papers or from someone else, really is immaterial to me. Truly, these videos really are, while funnels to the shop, yes, they really are just community building. I've just been making videos for you guys for so long that my weekly routine wouldn't be completely complete without doing at least one. I've always been an advocate for these watches. Omega Seamasters and Datejust have just always been the bedrock of my evangelization in this community. So I'd be remiss to not mention the 1603 in this photo. It's beautiful, it's clean, it's simple, it's no frills. And yet I still think, while it's one of the most affordable Rolexes on the market, I still think that it is one of the best. So that's it. Head on over to the Theo & Harris watch shop. I hope you enjoyed this video and this photo recap, and I will see you all soon.
Watches, particularly vintage watches, represent this intersection of history, of design, of engineering. Theo & Harris is a family business. It always has been. And that's because we, my family, all share a passion for this remarkable intersection. For nearly a decade now, we have scoured the world from Oklahoma to Tokyo for some of the most interesting watches by some of the world's most revered manufacturers to share with our community. We handpick our collection. We look for quality and we look for taste. We choose watches that, for one reason or another, speak to us. We authenticate them, we service them so they're ready for decades of memories to come, and then we share them here with you. We support our clients. We believe in expedited and fully insured shipping so they never have to wait. We believe in stress-free returns in the off chance they change their mind. We believe in building relationships that last. Theo & Harris is a family business. And we haven't just built a shop, we've built a community. So whether you're considering adding a vintage watch to your collection, a handmade strap to your life, or if you're just looking to talk watches, we're grateful that you've chosen us.